Here we go. We are 1 minute away from starting. I'm going to fire up our presentation. We're going to wait we'll give everybody another minute or two to join, and then we'll get going. All right, we are going to reward those that are on time. We're going to get rolling. It is now 1 o'clock. Welcome to 10 ways to use Microsoft 365 to make 2023 your most productive year yet. We're excited to do this webinar. We have all sorts of great content for you that we're going to fire through over the next little while. For those that have never been to one of our webinars before, here's how they generally roll. We do kind of about the third Wednesday of each month, we do a webinar. Our goal is to keep our clients, our friends in the community updated with what's going on in terms of technology. What's changing? What do you need to know? What's important in terms of what's out there? So today we're going to go through, we've got a roadmap, we've got stories, we've got recommendations, we've got all sorts of stuff. We got a poll. You know what? We've got a poll. That reminds me. Let's put a poll up here. So we're looking for some feedback from everybody that's on the line. One question, we will come back to this as we get going along. Take a minute to answer this question. Also, as we go along through the webinar today, there's a Q&A panel. If you have questions that come up, please put your question into the Q&A panel. We will either answer as we go if we see them, or we will definitely answer at the end. We do these webinars, the goal to keep them to about 30 minutes. I'm sure lots of people have been on hour-long webinars that should be 30 minutes long. We've got about 30 minutes of content, and then we'll stay on and answer questions after the fact, and all of that sort of stuff. So without further ado, here is, this is us. I'd like to introduce, I'm joined as always by Jermaine Clark, who is our Vice President of Operations at Techify. Welcome, Jermaine.
Thank you, Brendan. Happy to be here. Welcome to 2023.
Oh yeah, it's our first webinar of 2023.
That's right.
And this is the first time I've ever done a webinar after having a couple of Tiny Tom donuts. So this is like a whole new thing for me. I was up in Markham this morning and drove by the Tiny Tom donut store, and I was really excited. And for those that used to go to the C&E when you were younger and stuff like that, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about with Tiny Tom donuts. My name is Brendan Howe. I will come back from that tangent now and keep moving along. I'm the CEO of Techify. Jermaine and I have done, I don't know, something like 24 or 25 webinars together over the past 3 years, 2.5 years. We have lots of fun with it, and hopefully you'll find this webinar interesting. A couple of public service announcements before we get into the meat of our content. If you like this topic around productivity, collaboration with Microsoft 365, we are going to be going a little bit deeper into it in an in-person lunch and learn. It's a free lunch and learn at the Toronto Board of Trade. It is January 31st. The Board of Trade has this beautiful new facility down on the waterfront on Queens Quay. And they're allowing us to run a webinar, or asked us to run not a webinar, a in-person event. Got to get used to these in-person event things. So we're doing a lunch and learn down there. The QR code that's on your screen there, if you take your phone up to your screen, you can register for that workshop if you'd like to go a little bit deeper into this topic. The other thing we got coming up is Under Attack. It's our next webinar. We've got a fun little or interesting approach. we're going to show what it's like to actually get hacked. And in real time, see what happens when the hackers come in, get onto your network, what they do, how they do it, that sort of thing. We've got an expert coming in every few months. We'll bring an expert in as part of our webinar. So we've got a cybersecurity expert that's coming in that's going to show us what happens when the hackers attack. So you can use that QR code there to register for our webinars, or just go to our webpage at techify.ca. All right, let's get going. So here's a bit of context. We're in a economic environment that's a little bit weird, right? We've seen interest rates going up. According to the Bank of Canada Business Outlook survey, the kind of sentiment's trending to negative. People are more and more worried about the economy because of what's going on and some concerns there. But despite that, there is still a level of interest in making some CapEx investments, looking at machinery and equipment. According to the Bank of Canada, according to the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, the CapEx spending that's planned over the next few months, the most popular thing is computers and office technology, right? So the focus, despite concerns about the economy and where things are going and stuff like that, people are still focused on, okay, how do we optimize? How do we become more productive? How do we use technology better? How do we guard against risk? And in that same Canadian Federation of Independent Business survey from December, they also looked at what people were most concerned about in terms of cost constraints and stuff, effects from inflation, fuel, energy costs, insurance, wage, taxes, regulatory costs, that sort of thing. Technology costs were way down the list. So not only do people want to invest in technology, they're not feeling quite the pinch of the technology costs or as worried about technology costs. They're seeing it a little bit more as a strategic investment. So I thought that was good context to start our discussion here. And really what we wanted to get at is, okay, we all want to boost productivity, but why? What's the end state, or what are we looking to accomplish here? And that was the reason for our poll. So let's just pull up and see our poll results. If you have not answered our poll, please go in and answer it. The most common answers are the following. 77% of people that answered our poll, Jermaine, said they want to better utilize software they're already paying for.
All right.
Okay. We had 62% want to automate key manual processes. And then what was our third area? More effective hybrid work.
All right. So that's excellent. And we have one in the Q&A panel that came through as well that said to help staff with basic functionality when using SharePoint, PDFs, linking files in Outlook, etc. So right along the lines of that productivity spectrum.
Perfect. Okay. So there's a good picture of the outcomes that we're looking for, right? So we want our staff to be more productive. We want that output. We want to be able to use what we're already paying for in this kind of different economy without having to pay a boatload more. We want to better utilize what we're already spending on. And if we can automate some of those key manual processes, then we're getting way more out of technology, and we're getting more excited about technology. So that's along the lines with what we're thinking. Here's where we're at. We all have these gazillions of different applications, right? We have really too many applications. There's the software as a service industry is heavily backed by private equity, right? And private equity loves the recurring revenue and the ARR of apps and subscriptions and stuff like that. They less care about whether these applications actually integrate well, whether the data is in the same place, whether they work better together. So what's happened over the past few years is we've all layered on application after application, some of which only do one or two things, right? Like I was talking to a business owner yesterday. He said that they got an application just for purchasing. They have an accounting application, but they have an application they bought this application just for purchasing. And then they bought another application for something else, another application for something else, but none of these applications integrate or work with each other or talk with each other. And we're hearing this a lot, right, Jermaine? We're hearing from our clients the concern about, okay, we've bought these different applications to make us more productive, but they haven't actually made us more productive.
Not only do we hear it from our clients, but we also see it. We have to be careful of it ourselves in our domain to make sure that anything that we integrate to help support our clients as well meets the same criteria, that it integrates, it works and functions in a fashion that promotes productivity so that we can do more with what we have. And that's what we're getting across the board from all of our clients. They're like, well, why do I need this? What would I use that for? And as we go through, there's a little bit of, well, I don't actually know what I have as well. So I just purchased this thing to do a specific option. Like you said, they purchased this app just to do purchasing. But there's an app that exists already in the Microsoft 365 space that will allow you to do that. It'll allow you to get paid in a Teams meeting, right? So it's all about that education portion of it on the front end of knowing what you've got. So a lot going on there, and the clients have been very helpful in telling us where to go.
Yeah, and so I think we're moving into a world on the productivity front where we're going to see a lot of people going in the direction of, hold on a sec, we can't just have the marketing department adding an app and the finance department adding another application and somebody over here, the sales team adding another application. We need to start looking at how do we do more with what we're already paying for. And particularly the purpose of this webinar is really dive into the Microsoft 365 suite and talk about doing more with it, because there's so much inefficiency that we have because we have these apps all over the place, and then the data is not in the same place, so we don't have access to the same information, and then it actually makes it more difficult in some cases for us to do stuff than the purpose of implementing the applications, right?
Yeah, and so we're clear. We're not saying you're going to use less applications, just saying you're going to end up integrating them better so that they function and report in and give you the right data. Because at the end of the day, when you see the next slide, you're going to be like, well, guys, that's not a whole lot less than the last one. So we'll see.
Well, and this is what people see, a version of this when you log into your Microsoft 365 account. There's 34 apps here, right? And our non-scientific survey of our client base has concluded that there's about 27 applications that people are paying for on average that they're not using. So there's a huge opportunity here to simplify, improve the integration, and to better utilize the software, the services and stuff that we're already paying for. We got 27 opportunities on this screen here.
Yeah, and it's important. Like you take that from an example of it. If you from 27 to 34, that's 7 apps that people are using are all the same, relatively the same 7 apps, because that's what started the space, right? What started the space. So it's good to get that. Hey, this is in here. Why do they keep updating the page? This looks great. Let me get those apps going. So 27 opportunities, agreed.
Okay, and so as business owners, as executive directors or CEOs of nonprofits, we want to talk about the exciting stuff with technology, right? How do we automate processes? How do we take those manual processes and automate them so that people don't need to do stuff manually anymore? How do we create a data set? How do we get information, real-time information that we can make meaningful business decisions from? How do we get some great dashboards so that we know what's happening across our operation? That's all stuff is as business leaders and as organization leaders, we want to do it. It's the fun stuff, right? Yet the challenge is you can't do that advanced stuff unless you got the basics and the foundation sorted out. And sometimes, Jermaine, the foundation isn't as exciting, right?
Well, no, it's all the time. It's never exciting. To be a CEO, executive director, person running a business, quite frankly, the reason you hire a bunch of people is to ensure that all the non-fun stuff gets done so that you can do the fun stuff. And that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing because it gives you the opportunity to figure out how to grow the business, get the right intelligence, etc. And so with that in mind, a lot of people, as they think about this coming in, going in the webinar, people we speak to, they're, well, I want to do stage 3. Yeah. Stage 1 and 2, somebody else is going to handle that, but I want to get to stage 3. And having the connection between how stage 1 affects stage 3 or supports it, super important to figure out how to do that. And once you build that foundation on stage 1, improve it at stage 2, it sets you up appropriately to do stage 3. If you're going to run a marathon, you train for half marathon, and then the rest of it is, well, now I just got to put the foot to the road and get the remaining half of that marathon. You never run the entire marathon in your training. You got to do the foundation first, practice, get it functional before you get to the next level.
Yeah, so we have stage 3 here is, data visualization. It's great business intelligence. It's process automation. It's taking those manual processes that people said that they want to automate and making big impact with that. And we've seen so many examples where somebody tries to dive into this. And we're seeing an example right now with a client that they've gone headfirst into this, into the BI world, into the automation world, and they've gotten stuck because the foundational stuff isn't done, right? The get rid of servers in stage 1, use a common data source, get rid of too many apps or apps in different places, put in place a better system for hybrid work technology. The foundations of cybersecurity, make sure you've got strong cybersecurity in place. That's like the plumbing there, and it's not as exciting, but it's super important, right?
Well, unless you're a plumber, then you're having the time of your life.
Yeah, then the plumbing isn't really exciting. All I know is something about plumbing is things go downhill, something goes downhill. So as we continue to progress, so you get the foundation in place, and then you go to stage 2, which is the adoption and utilization phase, right? And that's where, so if stage 1 is get the horse to water, make sure your stuff is in the right place, and you've got the foundation. Stage 2 is getting your staff, getting your team adopting and utilizing. And then when you're creating this environment where people are properly utilizing the stuff that you're paying for, then you can move to that process automation BI stage, that stage 3. So we're going to take you through now. We promised 10 things that can supercharge your productivity. We had like 20 or so. We cut it down to 10. We'll probably have some more at the Board of Trade event later on this month, but we're going to go through 10, and they're each from different stages. So we want to give you examples, right? Again, your business is going to be a little bit, every business, every organization is going to be different. There's going to be stuff that's specific to you. But the goal here is we want to take you through each stage and give you some examples of how that productivity roadmap looks like, so that you can think about your productivity roadmap for your organization and kind of customize it more to you. So Jermaine, take us away with building the foundation.
Okay, great. Stage 1, build the foundation. Right? Realistically, what we're asking for here is not to make the assumption that the foundation has to be strong. It has to be established so that it can hold up to the requirements of what you're going to get in stage 3. And building that foundation is super important. It circles around having a clear and visual understanding of what your Microsoft 365 ecosystem looks like. So when we looked at the earlier slide, we showed you the apps that you will see. There's 37 apps there, or 34 apps there, that you see as soon as you load up. What do they do and how do they fit into your business is the most important part of it. You've got your office applications, your enterprise team applications, videos, presentations. It speaks to the collaboration portion of it, better hybrid work, having that common data source so that later on when you're looking for reporting, everything's coming through the same place. Emailing, video presentations, the analytics at the end of it. When you take a look at that kind of spectrum, the 7 apps that people are using are OneNote, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Teams, and so on. And when you take a good look at that, these are kind of your common 7 apps. You've got a little bit over here on PowerPoint, a whole lot in your OneDrive and your Teams and your Outlook. So we want to take that and really move it into and say, well, here's your primary foundation. If you've got everything in SharePoint, you've got everything functioning through Teams, which includes your chats, your meetings, everything that's happening. You've got your organization set on Azure AD, OneDrive, Outlook, Intune. And then you throw into that your Teams phone. So when you go through and you say, well, hey, coming from the top, if I'm going to use the suite that I have today that I'm paying for at the foundation level, everyone needs to understand how to use Teams, Teams phone, understand how to use their Outlook, their OneDrive, get their machines managed, but all of your data is sitting in your SharePoint, accessible, utilizable, and then you can draw analytics from it. So that's your foundation. 4 things you need to start with. If you haven't got it today, we assume that your email is sitting in Microsoft right now. If you're not there, that's okay. You don't get a minus rating. You're just starting fresh and you can only start at stage 1. So SharePoint, Teams, Azure, Teams phone.
And the theory, so we have the kind of high level theory here of we want to get our stuff, we want to get our data in the right place. We want to modernize our security. We want to modernize for hybrid work. And then because we know everybody loves to take away specifics from a webinar and specific ideas, here's your checklist. Figure out, are you in stage 1 or have you moved along to stage 2, or are you moving into stage 3, right? If your stuff's already in SharePoint, if your team is really good with dealing with Teams, if you have no file servers, domain controllers, like if you've gotten rid of your servers or you just have like a server left for like one application, but you can work without VPN, then you're well along the way. If your phone system isn't wedded to your desk, if you can take a phone call anywhere, maybe you're already in Teams phones, right?
Yeah.
So the foundational piece is there.
So we got our foundation. Let's push this along. In terms of stage 2, and I'm smiling because it gets more exciting as you go up the stages, obviously. Adoption and utilization. Here's where we get the biggest bulk of the challenges, your change. This is something that has to be built into your culture, right? We as an organization at one point had to go through the same growing pains. We had to figure out that, hey, you know, at this point, if anybody starts sending, and Brendan always explains this to everyone, is, hey, we created a rule where we said, you know, if you send us, don't send any documents as an attachment via email internally. Really what happened from my perspective, and this is why we're here, you know, there's his perspective and mine. It's always collaborative. My perspective was we started ignoring all the people that were sending attachments and emails. And then when they didn't get a response, I'd say, well, I don't answer emails that have an attachment. Where's the link? I want to go to SharePoint, right?
And here's the idea. Here's why it's so important. It's a fundamental piece. So you spend all this money moving your stuff to SharePoint, putting in place Azure AD, putting in place modern technology so that people can work. And then somebody emails an attachment and they screw it all up. Yeah. Because you can't do concurrent collaboration if people are emailing attachments. The versioning gets all like it doesn't work properly, right? The security on your documents goes out the window.
I'll tell you, the favorite part of collaboration on any of the documents, things in SharePoint, etc., is there's a chat function that nobody ever uses on the right side in the document. And you can have a whole discussion with the person you're working with, giving your key, why is this thing here, giving your comments, adding all this. It's so great. It's so great. So as you go through the adoption and utilization with your teams, you've got to make it easy, accessible, and really at this point, mindless. Like it has to not offer any resistance.
Can I make one more point before you show some
Absolutely.
of the examples? The thing that we're trying to nail in here that to get adoption, and this answers Ed's question, this is a fundamental piece. It has to come from senior leadership. There has to be leadership, just like any initiative in your organization, the senior leadership need to drive it. So if it's not being driven by senior leadership, if the CEO keeps emailing attachments and says, I don't understand the SharePoint stuff, it ain't gonna work, man. It's not gonna work.
All right, so why don't we give the people what they're here for, get them some nice examples of how we can make adoption and utilization easy. A great place to start is one of the things that we did as well in our organizations, we took all of our core applications that we use to support our clients, to support our teams internally, and we created an application dashboard. Every time our Windows Edge browser loads, it opens up the dashboard and all of your links are there. But most importantly, and this is something that, changed the way we work, instead of having 16 user admins and login information for each of the apps that you utilize, everything is on same sign-on. It is authenticated through the security that you established in stage 1. And now you can come into here and you can click on any of the portals, any of the software, and it will single sign on you into that. So you never have to remember 18 different passwords for the portals that you log into. Everything's going through SSO. So you log in and authenticate with your Microsoft 365 credentials. And now you're secure and you can access all of your apps. And they load up. You just click the icon and go. You imagine how much time people spend. What was the password for that again? Wrong password. Then they put it in 3 times and they got to reset the password. Not going to happen here.
Multiply that by 50 or 75 people across an organization. How much time are you
organizations that have more apps than we do? So there's also that, right? You multiply that and that's a lot of wasted time. So you can build those efficiencies in that. Great example there. Note-taking. Gone are the days where somebody's in the meeting and they're like, oh, I got the notes, I'm scribing. Oh, well, what did you say? Could you repeat that? No, let's get live captions into your meetings, take the notes. And as simple as this, well, how do you get the action items out? Was a question a couple of people asked me over the last few months. I said, well, you say in the meeting, I would like this to be an action item. Please do ABC. John. Later on, the person that's collating your data at the end of it can pull all of the action items out of the transcript. And that's just now reduced a whole lot of typing, and the people in the meeting can pay clear attention to everything they're doing. Great example. You want to get approvals going? As you go through and you're working, collaborating with people, the next step would be, as an example, would to be use the applications that exist in Teams. Approvals is a great one. If you've got a way in your organization that people need additional approvals for spend over $2,000 or $50,000 or whatever it turns out to be. You want approval on a new contract. Get approvals in your teams, send a contract off to all the people who are going to be giving you feedback on that. And then they get a reminder, everybody gives their feedback, they approve, they move on.
Yeah, if you can automate that follow-up.
Yeah, the follow-up,
things getting
check-in, you're not doing it, right? That's all manual. Hey, John, did you do it? Who has the right version? Next, quite simply, getting people to make a decision. I don't know about you guys, like the lunch decision was the thing that just kind of blew us away. Where do you guys want to get lunch from today? Oh, I don't know. Where do you want to go? I don't like this. Okay, let's send a quick poll out to the people going to lunch. Where do you want to go? In this poll, I don't know. This one's a good one. Nobody responded to this one though. They're like, hey, do we want to do our next offsite in Mexico, Dominican, or Alaska? I got a distinct feeling nobody's going to choose Alaska. But again, quick poll, where do you want to go? Here are your options. So now you narrow that decision-making process down, and then you get feedback in forms that tells you what the data says. Here's the survey you've sent out, here's the forms or the polls, and here's the data that you have. So
we had, and this goes back to the leadership piece that we were just mentioning a minute ago. So we've had various instances where people in our office will send out the blast email to the entire company saying, we're thinking about a team event on X date, who's available? And it's a perfect opportunity to say, hey, you can just put a poll in an email. You can use voting buttons in an email. It's all within your Outlook, right? And that's part, the back end of that's forms, but it's integrated already. So like, and I'll send out, instead of like, I don't want 17 different emails saying, hey, can we do April the 5th versus April the 4th versus April the 9th? You just put that right in your email and you can get that input and that data right away. And it's all like the back end of it is Microsoft Forms.
Yeah. And then you can see what people's first and second choices are. And you can color code your emails in your using conditional formatting in Outlook. If, you know, AR is this color, new clients coming in is this color, so that you can easily organize and see the data in front of you. So to kind of recap stage 2, what do you need to be in stage 2 to get that productivity going? SSO for all your apps in your browser. Manage your apps through your Microsoft 365 App Manager. Use live transcription notes and get your action items. Focus on the meeting. Have a transcript for everything that you do, and then run polls, forms, get that group decision-making process feedback data collection going. We use forms internally for getting peer feedback from our groups on where do we see the company objectives, what would you like to see changed in the next quarter, etc. All of that from our team, all in polls and forms.
But again, the stage 2 is not necessarily, it doesn't have to be these 3 things. But the stage 2 is getting different people in your organization trying different parts of Microsoft 365, different applications.
Using it, trying it out. Yeah,
different way to collect data, right? Different way to access apps, different way to take notes where you don't take them yourself, right?
That's always a good thing. Yeah, so why don't let's get over there, Brendan. Over to you. Let's hit up stage 3.
All right, so here's my favorite one. Last but not least, we're talking about stage 3, right? Stage 3, it's process automation and business intelligence. To me, they go hand in hand, but they're two distinct parts, and it's where you can really take this technology and you can supercharge your business. So let me give you, I'm going to give you a couple examples that we've seen across our client base. Here's our friendly construction worker, right? You'll see something interesting, pen and paper and in their hand. We had a client who was going out to construction sites, and they had a bunch of people doing this across multiple construction sites all over the country. And they would look at a piece of equipment and they would take down key data about it, not unlike this individual. And then what they would do is they would email it back into the office. In the office, they would put the data into an Excel spreadsheet. Then they would have that Excel spreadsheet graph the data so that it was meaningful, and then they'd send it back to the person on site. And then the person on site was able to take that, understand what was going on with the machine, make decisions, et cetera, et cetera. So we looked at that and said, wow, okay, we got an idea here. We took Forms, Power Automate, and Power BI and created a little app. Didn't take a lot of time because we've moved into the world of, we don't have to do a lot of coding anymore. We're doing a lot of configuration, drag and drop, that sort of stuff, if you're using the right platform and your data's in the right place. So we created a little app that all of a sudden this person would just punch in stuff on their phone. It would automatically go through Forms into Power BI and spit out a graph with the information they needed, and with no interaction from the office. Nobody on the back end was needed anymore.
And the most important part was they were still on site. They didn't have to go back another day. They didn't have to use the other manpower, etc. Really great example coming up from our clients.
Yeah, think about how many hours a week that saves in terms of productivity time. Okay, here's one other example. This is my favorite finance person. She's surrounded by paper. She's frustrated, right? Here's why she's frustrated: because she has to manually enter invoices. That doesn't make sense. There's no reason why, and we've seen this, whether you use QuickBooks or whether you use a different accounting application. You can use automation to take invoices out of an inbox. In our case, it's billing@techify.ca. Take that invoice from an inbox and automatically put it into your accounting system. Somebody should not be manually entering invoices month after month or day after day after day, right? That automation, the automation around, hey, accounts receivable follow-up. Is it an automated process, or does somebody have to manually email out to people? The accounting and finance function, there's so much opportunity for automating manual tasks, because there's so much in accounting and finance, which are repetitive processes. And then you get to the data side. And on the data side, yesterday I was at a meeting with 10 other CEOs, and we started to talk about data and saying, geez, it would be great if we could get real-time data about our operations, what's happening, be able to analyze costs, inputs, outputs, look at key metrics going on across our organizations. And there's an amazing capability. So many businesses are now using Power BI to do this. Data visualization is a big deal. Being able to kind of see and then show the rest of your team what's happening in your automation or in your operations, what's happening in your service delivery. We've got so much feedback, and this is such a big deal that we've recently added a new member of our team who's going to be dedicated on the business intelligence data visualization side of things to help our clients get deeper and deeper into this world, so that they can get the proper reporting, so they can, there's so many people I talk to that are using Excel spreadsheets and maybe have these crazy Excel spreadsheets macros, or maybe manually enter a bunch of information into an Excel spreadsheet and report it back to somebody. And the amount of time that's being spent on this sort of stuff. So this is stage 3 type of thing. Here's what we're talking about from a checklist. So Power Automate, it's built into Microsoft 365. It's part of it. Power Apps, you can create these little apps, and it's no longer coding. It's drag and drop type of stuff. It's phenomenal. And then Power BI, this is your business intelligence dashboarding, real-time data, like being able to make actionable decisions based on the data. So Jermaine, I think we've piled a bunch of stuff. We got a little bit long, but I wanted to make sure that we gave as many details as possible. We promised 10 things. We've given everybody 10 ideas. The other thing that we want to offer is a productivity roadmap assessment. So whether you're a client of ours or you're not a client of ours, is sort of a mix when we look at the participant list today. If you'd like us to come in, have a discussion, we've got a whole bunch of questions we normally ask about where you're at. If you're a client, we already know where you're at. And we can give you recommendations on where we think you are on this productivity roadmap and what we would suggest is your next steps. If you're already a client, this is kind of an ongoing conversation. There's a bunch of feedback that we can give you. If you're not a client, we're going to ask you some more discovery questions and understand a bit more about your processes and how you work and stuff like that. And then we can help guide you on this productivity roadmap to help make 2023 your most productive year ever. If there are any questions, feel free to pop them in the Q&A panel. We're happy to stick around and answer questions. That is the contact information for both Jermaine and myself. You can reach out to us directly if you want to have one-on-one questions. You can go to our website to the Contact Us page. that I showed in this slide that is from the QR code right there. If you'd like a productivity roadmap assessment, or you're feel free to email one of us as well, and we can get it done for you.
Yeah.
So
Excellent.
let's move on to the question side of things.
I've got one already. Pretty straightforward. They're just asking, though usual, for anyone new, just as a reminder, the webinar will be uploaded within the next 24 hours or so to our website. If you've missed anything with the QR codes early on and at the end, feel free. The webinar will be uploaded, but everything will be available on our website. So it's just techify.ca/webinars. So that answers that one.
Okay, I saw one about training here. Training's a good question. So training, the question is, how do we train people so that they know how to do these things? Essentially, right? So you see approvals, you see forms. We talked about polls. We talked about Outlook. We talked about these different things. How do you train? So this is something that I believe in pretty strongly. There's so many different types of training that work for people, right? And I think it's really important across a company. You can't just say, hey, we're going to schedule a lunch and learn and train the entire company on Microsoft 365 in 1 hour, and then everybody will be good, right? It's a process, right? So I always start with what's out there in terms of the office.com has all these little snippets of kind of 5-minute videos and stuff like that. Get people kind of thinking, right? Yeah. Think about who your champions are in the company, like people that are a little bit more adventurous, a little bit more techie. Like Jermaine and I, for example, are constantly looking for like little different things that we could try out, and different, like Microsoft Bookings for one, right? We were messing around with bookings. We did a virtual assistant. There's all sorts of little things like that. You'll have people in every company that want to try that sort of stuff. So get them to try it. Give them the room to try it, and then have them report back.
And not to give people another app to go use, but Microsoft is also aware of the challenge of how do we train and give people things in small bites that you can manage as an organization. So you can create your own training page on Viva Learning that will allow you, comes preloaded with all the standard stuff that's required for your stage one. Here's how you use Teams. Here's how you do this. Here's how you do that. And as you advance and you are interested in things, you can pick your own training or have it assigned your training track. So if you want to learn more about Power BI, you want to learn about Power Automate, how to create flows and create that little app that does the thing that you do every day because you understand that. All of that's available via Viva Learning. You just need someone to be the champion that will designate and kind of identify that and load it up to your own company's Viva page. So that's also an excellent option. And then you just click on the app. You're on the train. You've got some preloaded training already that you can do, or on your commute into work, etc.
Okay, so we've got a couple licensing questions. So why don't we'll take these two licensing questions. And then we'll probably, unless there's another question that pops up, we'll wrap up after that. So first question, Power BI needs a pro version to work ideally. What about Power Automate?
All right, so short answer is, depending on which license you're in within the Microsoft space, these are included. So again, the situation here would be our standard for across the board for our clients is Business Premium. Business Premium allows you to have several of these licenses already built into it, so you can have it. On a standalone, Power BI is about $15 or so by itself. Power Automate, you can get, it's about $10 or so. Ideally, what you always want to do is identify, and what Microsoft's trying to do is, as you find all of the applications that people use standard in kind of the small business space, what they're doing is they're piling it into the specific license type, and then you get a really reduced cost bundle that allows you to purchase that. So those are the two ways you can find it. But yes, you need to have the licensing to be able to create and own the space to utilize it, because it does create for you that kind of your own dashboards and your own space within your tenant.
Yeah, I think like in the Power BI world, the licensing in all this sort of stuff, the licensing is not simple. There's a level of complexity and in that sort of stuff in it. Like Power BI, you may not need a license to look at the dashboard, but you might need it to manipulate it, right? Like it really depends how it's built out and how you're doing your kind of dashboarding and information and stuff like that. You don't need a license to receive it by email.
So it's generally the person that's creating the content that has the licensing, which also allows it to be affordable, because you don't need to outfit everyone in your organization with it.
Yeah. The other question was just simply what items that you talked about today require additional licensing from Microsoft 365. You mentioned Teams phone, assuming that requires an additional license. Not all this is already paid for.
It's more of a you're changing your current phone system for the other phone system. So really, at the worst case scenario, it would be recommended to change it as you break even. You replace the old system with the new. And then in most cases, we get a cost recovery. So the client actually pays less overall because they're not buying into the physical phone plan, etc. So you actually you get your Teams phones across the organization for a lower cost than you would outfitting your office, and then the additional numbers and so forth that you port to people, etc. So based on that, like that's a great question. Thank you for that, James. Based on that, though, overall, the idea here is that you're looking for a cost. In order to do all of this, the whole idea is to reduce your overall cost, update your productivity and your efficiency. So regardless of what the licenses cost, once we do an analysis of your environment, we'll be able to tell you what the pros and cons are for that. Yeah.
The examples we gave, like SharePoint's always the greatest example. There's so many people out there that are still paying for SharePoint and they have a file server, right? Like it's included, they already have it. And they have a file server, they have local servers. And in some cases, people are spending $10, $15, $20,000 a year or every 3 or 4 years refreshing servers when they're already paying for that stuff. Like they're basically paying not to have a server, not to have that sort of thing. Forms doesn't cost anything extra, right? Like the different example, but putting the apps up on the home page and
all that stuff is all included. Yeah.
Teams obviously isn't, like the vast majority of the stuff we talked about today is all included in kind of your standard license that you would normally provide. And as Jermaine says, Microsoft's trying to get you using this stuff and get your data and get the efficiency level up. Obviously they have a vested interest in it because they want you to be there and be happy with it. But it's also, it makes sense. It makes so much sense. It simplifies things.
It does. Awesome.
All right. We have, we'll give you about 13 minutes to transition in the next thing into your schedule. Jermaine, thanks for joining me today. Everybody who's on the line, thanks for joining us. We always appreciate tons of attendance for our webinars. It's great to see so many people were interested in this topic today. We will dive into it further at our Board of Trade event later on this month. Hope you can attend that and hope you have a fantastic day today. Thanks a lot.